Yeah, pressing record now. So there you go. Let's press record. Yeah.
Hello and welcome to episode 78 of the Adoption and Fostering podcast with me, Scott, Cass and Rennie.
And me, Al Coates.
Oh, I see you today again. And this is a very special podcast because we're streaming the first 15 minutes live on Facebook.
Through the magic of the internet.
Because we're nutters.
I can't imagine anything going wrong, can you?
Not at all. No. Nothing could go wrong.
Absolutely.
So, if you are, which probably nobody is, to be fair,
No.
but if you are watching, or I don't know, because I can't see from here, but so basically, the first 15 minutes is free chat.
Yeah, well,
Questions, who joins, say hello.
yeah. Or we could maybe get on and see if people want to chip in.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll
Well, that's what I was hoping. I was hoping
we'll
for the
crack
first
on
15
and
minutes.
chip
We would have a little
because
bit.
we've lots to talk about.
We have lots to talk about.
And shall I introduce my lots to talk about? And we've got a hidden guest,
Special guest,
which is only for people who are on the podcast. The webcast can see this, and this is Susan,
as named by Peanut.
Yeah, Peanut named her. This is Susan, our mop, our in-house resident mop, and why are we doing this, Scott?
We're doing it for two reasons, really,
Yes.
aren't we?
Well, yeah, but, I asked you.
Well, there's two things that have happened over the last couple of weeks.
Well, it's become very prescient, hasn't it?
Yes,
Lots
it
of
has.
people talking about recruitment.
Yeah.
Adopters and foster carers.
Yeah, and it's a bit worrying, really.
What's
It's a
worrying?
bit when I say it's worrying that we've got a mop
Dressed as a...
dressed as a child.
Well, is it? Well, is it?
Well, is it? Yeah, to be fair. Although it's not the child, it's not the same mop that was depicted, because I don't think the mop that was depicted was used.
Do you want to give us some background? So maybe some people...
I'm not giving
Well, do you know what? I've looked at... Right, I feel like we are just rambling now, but I was looking at the statistics, and do you know what? There's an American state, the US state, sorry, United States.
Of mop.
No, not of mop. And they're Hawaii. Would you believe it? Of all the states in the
Really?
USA, Hawaii is the one state
Okay.
that has been watching a lot of it. So they won't understand that the mop, this is Susan, and
I do apologise.
what has happened is there's been quite a furore over a couple of things, and one was this. There was a couple of recruitment campaigns in relation to foster carers that's been going live and across Twitter, and there was a foster care agency that had this. It was like a 2-minute video, wasn't it?
It was.
And it was a mum looking, or it was a woman looking at a mop, and she was kind of giving it the attention and love that you would give a child. And then the story developed, and she was there with her husband, we presume, and the child was getting older, and the first ride on a bike, and it just kind of told the story of this child getting older and older and leaving for university, and they grade and got old. And then it said, why? I think the tagline was, why not foster? If there's it's not like if there's a gap in your life, why foster? And it kicked right off.
It did.
And then so there was a hashtag, drop the mop. Oh, hang on. And so people got very animated about this idea that people got very animated about this idea that people were portraying children who were in the looked after child system as mops.
Yes, I know.
Is that how you read it?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. I know you didn't, but...
Well, I didn't get that at all. I just thought it was people... For one, I think advertising, you can't take it that seriously, can you? Not after, what was it? The the adoption thing where there was the gift gaff.
Yes.
That adoption thing.
To be fair, I was there when that happened.
You were
I
there.
wasn't
You
quite
were at the
involved in
epicenter of that. But
Not quite, but...
I think that it just one thing that actually there is a crisis of recruitment in foster care.
There is.
Which was manifest by the newspaper article, but I don't think there was any malice, or there was any intention to portray children who were in the looked after system as mops.
I know. It's an interesting one. It really is. And there was another one. There was another one about New Year's resolutions.
Was that adoption though?
Yes, that was adoption. Well, yeah, but we're adoption and fostering, so we have to cover them both.
Yeah, well, it's okay.
But the New Year's resolution was more around. Do it because you're going to have a child as a New Year's resolution. I can't say the word resolution for some reason.
Clearly.
And this is more about the bigger kind of thing on recruitment, isn't it? We've got people watching us.
Yeah. But yeah, but let's not get.
No, but we've had a question.
All right, okay, question.
We've had a question. So we've got. There's actually 12 people watching.
All right, okay.
You mad people. So we've got.
What's the question? Then?
Someone called Lauren, someone called Claire.
What's the question?
And
this is terrible. If you're listening to the podcast,
someone called Kevin as well.
In 3 weeks from now, this is Douglas Ditchwater.
So, Lawrence, love the podcast and have learned a lot and had some change of opinion. I have a question for Scott.
All right, here we go. We'll go back to fostering.
This can only go one way.
We will come back to fostering, though. I'll make a note of that.
Someone said love. Oh, Mark Ors, friend of the show. Mark Ors, love from Jersey.
Oh, well. I hope you're enjoying those potatoes.
We miss you, Mark Ors.
But don't get distracted.
No, I'm not.
Lawrence.
So, Lawrence, you mentioned Ireland a lot. And we see some differences in needs of adoptees in Ireland compared to the UK. What differences do you see?
That's a big question, isn't it?
That's a big question, isn't it?
Well, yeah.
Go on.
No, but I mean, you've lived there now, coming up for a year.
Nearly a year.
And it's often something we discuss and we reflect on.
Yeah, we try to.
Well, it's often we discuss outside of this.
Yeah.
That your experience, and because thinking about transferable skills, because on a really basic level you're thinking, well, that's something that I can maybe do in the community, the immediate community.
Yeah.
So what difference are you seeing about?
So the difference I'm seeing really is about the reasons for adoption, which is the first thing.
Right.
Okay, so it's very different. Well, it has been very different. I'm not sure kind of now, because obviously there's few changes. So as an example, the Magdalene laundries have gone, but only and when I say very recently, I mean like 1996.
So
that's quite recent, actually, when you think about it, isn't it? And other reasons, as an example, would be obviously in Ireland, the abortion laws have changed,
which is really recent.
Well, it is very. I mean, it's only in the last 18 months, 2 years. So I think there will be a difference as we go forward. But up until now, I think that the reasons for adoption in Ireland have been very kind of almost like 1980s UK, 1970s, 1980s UK, where it was relinquishment.
So a societal expectation that you shouldn't be a single mum.
And also, to some point, a religious kind of aspect to it as well.
Yeah,
not
shame on the family.
Exactly, and there's obviously let's face it, Ireland is quite high in terms of the. I'm trying to phrase this correctly so that I don't offend anybody, but Catholicism.
Offend on.
Catholicism is quite
predominant.
Yeah, it is in Ireland.
It's the national faith, isn't it?
Exactly. So it's very different in terms of that respect as well. So there's a lot of kind of religious aspects that we need to kind of take into account. So in terms of in Ireland, I think Ireland has so much potential in terms of, because actually when we lived there before, just at the turn of the century, and it's very different because we had to move back to the UK to adopt. Yeah.
Because of the equality law.
Exactly, yeah. And we were told by the local kind of health authority that we wouldn't be able to foster or adopt because from a religious aspect we would have to be approved by the priests and the nuns and all that sort of stuff.
You have to get references from them.
Yeah, exactly. So it's very different, and I think now that would be very different. So there's a lot to do, I think, in Ireland, not just for adopters or parents of children who've been adopted, but also for adoptees as well. Because let's be honest about it, we know from the UK system that some are happy with it and some are really not happy with it. And I think as time goes on and we kind of learn more and the kind of Irish contingent of this community that we are part of learn more, it will start to come out. So I think that that's the difference. I think that it's not that they're behind, because I know I've said this before about the education system, and that's more about the SEN children. Yeah. But I think in terms of adoption, I think that's very different because I think they'll leap way beyond us in the UK. I say us because I actually live in Ireland, but you know what I'm saying. It will just leap forward. It will just at a click of a finger. It will just go so much further forward because they will just get it quickly.
Towards supporting adopted adults. in that sense. Is that what you're talking about?
Say that again, sorry.
So that in the sense, yeah, you keep getting distracted by sort of
questions from Mark Orrs.
Hello.
Mark Orrs.
But in the sense that there was a couple of questions I had. Is so their child protection system, do they have such like a process of adoption order now in Ireland?
Well, that's an interesting thing, because I'm trying to get to the bottom of all this.
Right.
And I'm getting somewhere, but it's taken a long time to understand the system, because it's very different. It is extremely, they're more about permanence within a special guardianship or a family or long-term foster care.
And is that a backlash against perhaps a system that was seen to be, I guess there's a
I think the word adoption,
backlash.
yeah, I think the word adoption relates to this old-fashioned.
Well, all of that negative stuff that came with the Magdalene,
exactly.
and all of that. Even now, there's still, you see in the news, children found, or the remains of children found in different places, and really, really quite a dark history. So, but contemporary adoption is perhaps on a much lower level than we would say in the United Kingdom, and how it's held is probably culturally very different.
Exactly, and you've got religion plays a big part as well. I mean, it really does, because you've got two religions, and if you go back a couple of decades, religion played a big part in kind of all this. So there you go, Lawrence. I hope that. No, that doesn't answer your question. No, it doesn't.
It's interesting. Mark Oz he said that there's lots of approved adopters, but there are a lot of children waiting.
There are not a lot of children waiting. Some colleagues in the voluntary sector have been keen to see how Irish approved adopters could help to find homes for children waiting in England. Discuss.
Oh, shut your mouth.
Yeah. Mark Orrs, just go back to Jersey.
Well, no, but that is really interesting, isn't it? Because I see conversations I have and with people who are in that process, just saying there's too many children waiting.
Yeah.
And again, I think the adoption figures went down again. That was the news. Because this is the first podcast we've had since even before the election, so there's a lot of election stuff that's flowing around as well. Well, that's really complicated, isn't it?
So
hi from South Africa.
Yeah, I know. I was just going to say hi to Joanne, hi to Paul, hi to Alan and Janet. That's my cousin. He says proud. So it's basically
your family you've come on and watch.
He says proud.
Proud, more blessings.
Mrs. C is watching.
Oh yeah, always watching.
We need to watch what we're saying.
Yeah,
she's just fed me.
She's always watching.
Yeah. So anyway, if you've got any questions, because we've got another 5 minutes of this live thing before we then.
But I'll save it and it'll be on the. It'll be up for a while. That'll be.
It will. Yeah.
But I think that we've been thinking. I mean, we'll go back to the fostering and the questions around recruitment, because I think that's really interesting. But I think in the 5 minutes remaining, I think that we've been talking a lot about our plans for the podcast, and that may be something
we have. That's maybe something we should discuss live, isn't it? Oh. Dun dun dun!
It's like my annual appraisal all over again. I had it this year again. My annual appraisal. I've just had one.
Let me think. I'm just trying to think when I'm having mine.
Oh, you're not having
I'm not.
Because you're unemployed. Unemployable. There's a fine line. But do you know what my boss said? She went, everything was fine. We had a bit of an argument over how good I was. She said I wanted to downplay the...
Was it your appearance again?
No, it wasn't my appearance. It was, she said, I really think you need to get out more.
You need to go out with Scott more.
No, she didn't say that. She was explicit. She didn't say that. I need to socialise more.
Mark Orrs has a question.
Oh.
Mark Orrs, I'll tell you, we're going to come to Jersey. We're going to hunt you down.
No, it's a really good question.
It is a good question, actually.
And can I say, Mark, that is really interestingly, I spoke to, I asked Andrew Christie, who's the chair of the Special Adoption Special Guardian Leadership Board. I asked him in the podcast over the summer a question specifically about that. Why don't we record that data about matching, whether we're matching children of colour with white families? And then I kind of left it for 6 months, and then I emailed him, and I saw him this week, and he said basically there's a couple of things. We asked about BAME children, and that data, there's complicated issues around confidentiality. That was what they said to me, and it just kind of felt like that doesn't add up, because if you start to identify specific children with parents, then that becomes identifiable. And then the law doesn't say it has to be an issue, so there's an element of having to justify collecting that data, because why do we need it?
Yeah.
And that feels really frustrating, because I think that if we're saying there's a deficiency of parents who reflect the colour of children, but we don't know. we actually have no way of saying who's waiting. So, for example, we know that children who BAME children wait longer to be matched.
Yeah.
But we don't know whether that wait is because people are saying, right, we're going to wait for a perfect match, we'll wait a year, and then we'll just go to wherever.
Yeah.
Or whether it's that we're waiting a year and then they're going to the right family, or a family that reflects their ethnicity, or whether we're not doing any of that and we're just looking for somewhere to put people. And so I think in some ways there's got to be a level of public interest where people like the likes of you and me, and we're kind of making an issue that comes to the fore of public awareness, and only then will there be a justifiable reason to do it, because it stinks though. It feels like that's rubbish. We should know where children are going.
Yeah, of course we should. You've got more experience of that than I have, obviously.
Obvs.
Yeah,
because two of my children are Black British.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I mean, there was a round table though, wasn't there? There was a round table at number 10 actually
recently
on this specific topic, which
recruitment again.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the interesting thing. If you have to, I mean, I'm not disagreeing with the fact that we have to have a round table. Can I just say we're going over 15 minutes here?
We are, but more questions are coming
lucky
in.
Facebook, all right, Facebook livers.
Well, keep going. Answer that question, and we'll end.
I've just seen that one. But if you're having to get people to go to a round table, then there is a big issue. In my eyes, because if I think back, 12 years ago, I was invited to a round table at the DFE. That was my first time at the DFE.
With Michael Gove?
Yes, it was. And I can't remember very much of it, to be honest with you, because it's a long time ago, and I was like, why have I been invited to this?
There's always an element of that.
Equally, if we're having roundtables about specific topics, then there's obviously a specific issue around this. So,
let's see how that works.
I guess, I don't know. I mean, I certainly don't have the answer to that. Do you?
No, I think that the question of recruitment always begs bigger questions, but I think we'll get back to that as we're talking about recruitment.
Yeah.
And one of the next questions that came up. All right, bye, Mark. See ya. One of the questions that came up there was around trauma bonds. Did you see that question that just came up? What do you think about trauma bonds between siblings? Because there was the File and 4, which I confess I didn't listen to.
I didn't. I've not had a chance to listen to it yet, but
we've both got siblings.
It's interesting. Yeah, it is very interesting, and it's also interesting that we've got siblings, and we've also got non-biological
siblings
set up as well. You know what I mean?
Adoptive siblings.
Yeah. And I'm not sure what my thoughts are on that. That's my way of wimping out and saying I'm sorry.
I think your thoughts probably on mine is that it's got to be done on a case by case basis.
I think it actually does. Actually, I think it actually does. Actually, that's not even proper English, is it?
Wow, you're on fire today.
Yeah, I am. I can't say resolution.
Yeah.
It's these false teeth.
No, I know.
I think there is such a thing, but I don't think that there's ever going to be a way to make sure that if, say, example, you assess a sibling group placed with foster carers or adopters or special guardian, I don't think you can see what's going to come over time.
No,
it's just it's an impossible feat. And do you know what? I admire social workers for that, because actually they get a rough ride over that, because how the hell are they going to know what's going to be the same in 5 years, 6 years, 7 years? So that's my response to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's got to be a case by case basis, and if children have to, or it's deemed that it's appropriate, those children are no longer live in the same house or household, for whether that's, like you say, adoptive or fostering, that we think about how we maintain that connection in a way that's really healthy, so that it's a sense of it doesn't be that trauma isn't then played out in a contact centre or wherever. Charlie Chalks, which is. They're probably gone now, aren't they, Charlie Chalks?
I think they are.
Oh, yeah.
I think they were
gone 10 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's not played out in those sort of contact, those kind of messy and sometimes complicated contact arrangements. But my experience is that, I suppose professionally and personally, it's not a dead cert. And I was at a meeting yesterday, and someone said that.
Yeah.
and said it with such assurance that we know that there are trauma bonds. And I kind of like did everything in my power not to go balderdash, because I also know from experience that my children have fantastic relationships that are, but like all siblings.
Well, of course, I mean, that is the thing, isn't it? And
you met my brother tonight.
I did. Yeah. But where is the limit? I know with my brother when we were younger that that was very difficult. So anyway, does that answer trauma bonds?
I think that does. It's a question from
Jan.
Jan.
You
John.
need to scroll back first. You need to scroll back.
Well, you scroll back then.
No, but I think this is not the best question for me to be answering, so I'm going to ask you for it.
What's that?
So it's from Simon. Adoption UK, good or bad?
Is that the question?
I was at a recent adoption support group, and there was a general feeling for some, not all, that Adoption UK membership was a waste of time. I personally feel Adoption UK is fantastic. Who else do we have as adoptive families stand up for us nationally? What are your thoughts, Alan Scott?
I understand.
I'm going to say I'm not going to respond to that, because I don't think that's a fair question to ask me.
I'm not sure it's a fair question to ask me.
I don't think it's fair.
I think there's lots of variables. So I live in the northeast where we don't have very much representation.
Yeah.
So I think for us as a family, it never made any sense. But that's kind of a downward spiral, isn't it? Because if everyone in the northeast thinks that,
exactly.
then you don't get a group.
Yeah.
So I think that it all depends where you are on the journey and the build-up of your local cohort. I don't think it's as simple as good or bad. I think it all depends on what you need as a family. And I think for people at the very beginning of their journey, I think Adoption UK offers some incredible resources like the Adoption UK mag, which is a really good resource, the support groups, some of the helplines and things, the chat rooms. Yeah. So generally I think it's good. And what is it a year? You'll know that. Can you answer that question?
What?
How much is it a year to join? I wasn't asking you how much you earn a year.
Zero,
yeah.
It's £54 direct debit, £50.
Yeah, so
no, £50 direct debit.
So it's £1 a week.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think on balance, they're probably.
I guess it depends on what you're looking for as well from it, doesn't it? I mean, the magazine, in its time has been good. It's not been so good. You had children who wait. If you were family finding, obviously the internet's taken over from that.
Back in the day.
Yeah, exactly. So there's lots of changes, and I guess, I'll answer this in terms of, I'm not saying whether it's a good or bad thing to join Adoption UK, but what I'm saying to on this is, I worked for them 5 years, and actually
the best years of your life.
And in actual fact, putting 50, 60, 70 hours a weekend for something that you believe in is,
it speaks volumes.
It does. But equally, I think it's up to the individual. For me, as an individual, I'm a Scotsman. I ain't going to pay nothing for a membership for nothing. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of that effect, and I guess it just depends on where your priorities lie. I mean, I couldn't afford to pay that. Not being funny, I know it's only whatever it is, but I can't, because we were at that point a one income family, 3 kids, blah blah blah. So, but I guess it just depends. I just guess it depends on what you're looking for it. But because we had no local support groups, that was my responsibility at one stage. We had no local support groups. Yeah. But when you're doing 50, 60, 70 hours a week trying to do other things, focusing on that is very different. So, what I would say is that Adoption UK has morphed into something kind of new, and it's developing.
It evolves with the times, doesn't it?
And it needed to. And that's a great thing. So, if that's what you... If that's what you need,
I would say that, generally, if you're at the beginning of your journey, I would have thought Adoption UK would be really helpful.
Yeah, I used forums all the time in 2007, 8, 9,
which is
all the time,
which coincides with you sort of beginning.
But then Twitter took over.
Yeah, but I think for us as a family, we were we signed up ourselves, then we let that lapse, then we were signed up when Peanut came along, and it's useful. It is good. I think it. But there's also other options. There's other people. I don't want to kind of other support agencies.
Well, of course there is. Yeah,
We Have Family in London. There's Laughs in Leicestershire.
And they're offering their stuff for at no cost. So I guess it depends on where you are, what's on offer. I guess as well it depends on who's willing to do what. So like Laughs, We Are Family. They're doing
by people.
They're doing it with no charge, and they're pulling from here, there, everywhere.
And the RAs maybe.
maybe.
I think I know when we did the event, Islington put up a free venue,
Exactly.
and so there's that kind of mutual agreement with the RAs.
I guess things are changing, and with the RAs as well. Right, so we're going to try and wind us down now. Mrs. C says, taking your dog to bed now, I'll say good night.
Good night, my little angel of love.
John, Mr. CR, how's things? Here's a question. How do we get adoption? I just sigh every time.
I know you get a real.
I opened myself up for this
Just
tonight.
pretend.
How do we get adoption attachment issues into the mainstream? Folks really don't get it. With the increased awareness and education in autism, gender issues and so on, isn't it time for attachment? John M, and I say that because I don't want to say your surname, although it is actually on this live feed now, but you know, do you know what? You just never surprise me with some of the stuff that you come out with, but anyway.
Do you know him?
Yeah.
All right, okay. Well, I think attachment in the mainstream, I think it is generally in the mainstream. I think that attachment in some way reflects a certain time, an issue. And actually, one of the things I really would love us to do is I'd love us to do an attachment podcast.
Yeah.
Because I think that there's a lot of people read a lot of books about attachment, and I think that they don't necessarily understand it.
Yeah.
So I think that I'd love to get someone who's clever and brighter than us to kind of help us unpick the difference between.
Many more people.
It's a long list. It's a very long list. Okay, where's the dog?
The cat as well. Bring the cat.
And
the mop.
Susan.
Susan the mop. For anybody who's missed Susan the mop.
I think we confuse bonding with attachment. I think that for all children who've been through the foster care and the adoption system and the special guardianship, all of that, who've experienced early adversity, that attachment is part of the jigsaw. It's not the be all and end all. And the danger is that I've been into school environments where this idea, if all you've got is a hammer, every problem's a nail. Yeah. So it's attachment issues. It's attachment. You go, well, no, it's just crap skill. Or or actually you're a bad teacher, or they don't like it, or it's actually trauma, or it could be a whole raft of things. I think the minute you give people a little bit of information, the danger is that they then run with it, and it becomes.
I know that's the thing, isn't it? And they're not qualified to run with it. That's the problem, isn't it? And when I say qualified, I don't mean like they've got a PhD in it. I'm just talking about them not being fully informed, so they're listening to someone or something that might actually not be quite as specific as what that means.
Yeah. I mean, we, for example, at the university, we did attachment. We had a human growth and development module that focused heavily on attachment. So that's a full semester, 2 hours a week, with a 3,000-word essay. And I would say that I have a fair grounding in attachment. I wouldn't say any more than that. I wouldn't say I wasn't qualified to talk in school. I can apply it across a range of contexts. And also, importantly, we didn't necessarily we looked at being able to identify it. Didn't give any options for fixing it. I don't, if there is such a thing as fixing it, but supporting children who struggle with attachment. And I think there's a lot of balderdash. And I think actually, when you read the current research, where is it? Oh, where's my favourite book?
Wait till he goes to his library.
I can't find it.
Is that a pop-up?
Is it a pop-up book? No, it's not.
It's got pictures in it.
There's a wonderful book called Raising Parents by Dr. Patricia Crittenden, and that is the top drawer, but that represents knowledge that I've never heard anyone talk about.
Okay.
But Patricia Crittenden and this idea of dynamic maturation, Google it. That's stuff that we're not talking about. So I really would love to do a podcast specifically about bonding and attachment, because I think that the two are confused, especially at that time of when children are moving into homes for adopted parents. Cool. There you go.
Okay, so we're going to wrap this up for the Facebook Live in a second. Joanne said, need to go to Asda. Is calling. Sorry.
Buy one of those big trays of donuts.
Yeah, please, because we need some sugar.
We need some sugar.
Paul says, it's a total uphill struggle. Even when you get someone to listen, they aren't usually the ones with the power to change things, especially in schools. Are you leaving me hanging here for the high five?
All right, okay.
Yeah, that was a high five.
Oh, I didn't. I just thought you were.
I don't think we've got any comment to make on that, Paul.
I think.
Sadly.
I mean, can I comment on that? Because I think that one of the key things I increasingly start doing when I'm talking to adopted parents is, I think adopted parents need training in how to work with professionals. Is that contentious?
Yeah. No, I think that's right. Actually, I think that goes both ways.
No, I don't think so. I
do.
I think we need to take responsibility, because I think that often get these. I meet adopted parents, and I meet them regularly, and I go, "Blimey, you." This is how the rest of the world feels about school. This is how there's a lot. We are just the tip of the iceberg.
Okay.
We need to be really savvy how we communicate the needs of our children in a way that schools can accept, that's non-threatening, that makes sense to them. If we've got to make it something that they go, that's going to help me.
Okay.
And I think that too often I meet adoptive parents, not exclusively, who are the analogy I use is, if you are a mechanic and you go to a garage and tell another mechanic how to fix your car, you know for a fact he's going to put money on your bill and he's going to call you behind your back.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than being told what to do by someone. So you need to communicate with teachers in a way that makes them, that empowers them, that doesn't patronise them. I've got all the time in the world. I can read 1,000 books on attachment and then go and beat you over the head with it and tell you what you're doing wrong. But that's a teacher with 30 children, only one of whom is adopted, in a school of 300-400.
Yeah, fair. But equally, the kind of approach you take to children who've been adopted or fostered could actually, but that's a message that I've always been quite clear on, is the fact that we've got so many different children in society and education who have experienced all this trauma. Whether it be divorce, death, blah blah, single parents, etc. And in actual fact, if we go to the extreme of just treating children, or not treating children, that's the wrong phrase. If we just accept children for the fact that they may have experienced some of these things, then actually, you know what, we might do a little bit better with that.
But I think there's a real challenge there, because I think I totally agree. But I think that to do that as adopters, we have to give up something. We are the tip of the spear, but I think we need to we need to speak less and throw our hat in the ring with the other children with special educational needs. When there's 68,000 children under 16 under 18 who are adopted in the UK. There's, I think, 1.3 million children with special educational needs. We are a drop in the ocean,
a tiny little bit of it.
So but if we throw our what we have, which is, we have probably more kudos, we have more, not rightly or wrongly, it's just a fact, we have probably more kudos, we have more voice, we probably are, as a collective group of people, have a political ear that other groups don't have. If we tip ourselves in with 1.3 million, then we become a force. And then we include special guardians, because there's more, again, the last quarter, I think there was more special guardianship orders made than adoption orders. If we tip in with all of these people, we become a force to be reckoned with. But the minute if we're stood on the corner being probably shouting louder than the other parents and getting more attention, and they're going, but for one child, we're saying instead, it's not for one child, it's
for the whole.
It's for 10% or 15%, whatever it is.
Right, we're going to wrap this up now.
You're determined to wrap it up.
No, because we've got 33 minutes, and nobody is going to watch once it's recorded. Well, they might do, I don't know. Fiona Aiken, who we spoke to on the Education podcast, Scotland Adoption UK in Scotland.
Yes.
Hi, Fiona. If you're still watching, that is, because I was.
Don't just say hi to people. That is dull podcast.
Well, no, I'm saying hi because she's watching. She's taking the time out of her evening,
her busy
to
life,
watch us make fools of ourselves on Facebook.
Speak for yourself.
Well, John, never cease to amaze you, moi. No comment. The mop's back. John, totally agree. We need to be facilitators, not dictators to professionals. Can be frustrating, but using pace with professionals was a good tip I learned. There you go.
Nice one, John.
Simon, well said, Al. Some adoptive parents make a mess of things with schools. Please don't hit me, adoptive parents. Wow. Simon,
it's the internet, baby.
I know. I mean, we can't control that.
We shall release.
We'll delete comments if they're,
if they get shirty.
John again. See, reattachment. See, that's what I'm talking about with John. He's just there. He's always there.
I don't know who he is.
I'll tell you later.
All right.
Don't comment again, John.
No, right. Okay.
Reattachment. I used it as a catch-all for adoption issues outside of the community. Folks don't get it. And then we're not going to answer any more questions, but this is the last two.
It's a lot of people. I mean, attachments really are people.
Yeah, it is. But is that because we use it as a phrase,
a catch-all,
without knowing what it means. And this is my key thing, because when I think back 13 years ago and we were talking about bonding and all these kind of attachment things, and we said to a social worker, about what was it? I can't even remember what the phrase was, but they were like, "What does that mean?" And we were like, "What do you mean? What does it mean?" And it's now used, and it's similar to attachment. It is attachment actually, because it's about attachment disorders and all these kind of things. And but the thing is, there's so many of them, and actually, who decides what the attachment issue is?
Well, I mean, if I'm drawing on my knowledge of attachment disorder is not necessarily a thing.
Exactly.
And a disorder of attachment, well, the Crittenden model argues this idea that we see attachment in kind of these binary terms, but actually it's this dynamic thing that alters depending on the circumstances, but also reframing them as strategies, a strategy for keeping a child safe and making sense of the world they live in.
Yeah.
But culturally as well, if you go to the US, I mean, if you type in RAD, R-A-D, reactive attachment disorder.
RAD is a massive overused thing.
Well, in America, but that's a culturally very different, but also how you get a diagnosis is different.
Yeah.
But
just in case you're wondering, a RAD is reactive attachment disorder,
which is incredibly, in the UK, I know of a handful of children who've got that diagnosis because it's seen as catastrophic.
Yeah,
whereas in the US it's not so. And actually, I think I did fall out with someone on Twitter because they were calling
surprise.
Well, no, they were calling it more my rad kid. And I went,
really?
And I went, whoa! Shut the front door. Is that how we're going to do it? And they all benefit to them. They said, please explain that to me, and I did, and they've stopped doing it.
Okay.
And you probably know because on Twitter. And I thought,
tell me after.
More power to you. But all that stuff is cultural.
Yeah. Of course it is. And it depends on who's using it and what for reason.
There is a really hang on.
Here we go.
No, I can't find that book either. I'm really disappointed I can't find
So last two comments, and these are just comments before we end this Facebook Live that was supposed to be 15 minutes and is actually 40 minutes. Alice wandered off.
Just keep
going. So Mark says, I think all the children at the school where I teach benefit from us, in brackets, our school, becoming trauma and attachment aware. Fabulous. That's just... that for me, that's what I want to hear. And then Paul says, once my kids' school went on attachment training, they decided it was beneficial to all children. Exactly. So thank you for that. And then we've had Claire who said that her son has a diagnosis of RAD.
Yeah, which is fine. I'm not saying it doesn't exist.
No, I mean, we're not saying it doesn't exist, but what we're saying is it's very kind of, then John, we're wrapping this up.
No, I get really animated about attachment because it's such.
Did you find what you looked for anyway?
And can I? No, I didn't find it.
See, this is what we're looking at. He was looking at his Lyle's golden syrup jars, of which he's got 25 million of them.
Actually, and I'm going to draw myself on the rocks here. I was joined a Facebook group called the Attachment Disorder Facebook group, and I had Adoptees for attachment disorder or something.
Right.
Well, that's a ridiculous name. You wouldn't be Adoptees against attachment disorder, wouldn't it? And I kind of pulled myself out because actually I just thought the language people were using around it felt so. It was like, this is all we have. Yeah. This is all we've got, and this is.
And it's almost like putting the pin on the donkey kind of thing. Yeah. It's like that is the one thing, and it's not the one thing, is it? Because let's face it, I read some stuff today.
Well done.
Through there.
Oh yeah.
Actually, there were so many things in it. It wasn't one specific thing, and I think good luck whoever's going to have to analyse all that data because it's just not great. On that note, John, this is the final comment, and we are going to say goodbye.
Right, to them, but not to the podcast.
No, not to the podcast, because we're going to keep recording, because that means you might actually download it. You might listen to it.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Mum, Dad. Oh no. My dad can't listen to it.
Just keep going, Scott.
Yeah. Hi, Gary. And John says, thanks for a fabulous show.
Love the show, Steve.
Gents. And on that note, and Simon's just said, good night, both. Very good and enjoyed.
Right, I'm going
to
reach over.
We're going to say goodbye because I don't know if we'll ever do this again, in all honesty.
I think it. Yeah.
But goodbye to Facebook Live.
Goodbye to Facebook. You've all been beautiful people. Go about and do something useful. Go and watch Love Island or something.